Orphans who didn't get adopted, what happened, and how is life now? Story 1. If any of you here in the thread are considering becoming a foster parent, do it. I do child welfare law for the government. Single, married, gay, straight, black, white, brown, yellow. Doesn't matter. Kids don't give it. They just need love. I've had cases where the white foster parents were concerned about how to do black girl hair. Guess what? The state will help you learn how to do black girl hair. There's so many resources. I could go into ridiculous detail of the disastrous cases I've had of kids who aged out of the system, left despite all the resources they have access to, end up on drugs, and then we start the cycle over again with their kids in foster care. We need foster parents across the country. Please consider it. You get financial assistance to do it, so don't let that stop you if you've been considering it. Anyone can feel free to PM your state. It'll point you in the right direction. Several people have asked about how to get involved without the commitment of being a foster parent. I encourage everyone to check out their local court-appointed special advocate program, CASA. You can find your local here basically. They're an additional set of eyes and ears for the court, the ad litem, and the state. They're crucial to an overworked system. It is a very small time commitment compared to raising a kid. Edit to RIP inbox. They'll get to every PM in question as quickly as possible. Also, see post from Ugrugger here. It made my night and gave me a big smile. Faith in humanity restored. Thanks, Edit 3UM 723 reminded me to let you all know about Respite Care. It is essentially volunteer babysitting to give foster parent a break from time to time, or if they need to be out of town for something, or have an emergency like a death in the family. But there is a visitation scheduled with the bio parent, so it doesn't make sense to take the foster kid with them to a funeral. So Respite Care comes into play. Edit 4, of course, there's a sub for all of this from you, Metamorph, and of course, how would you care to plug or foster it? And Rad Option, we talk about foster care a lot in the latter, which is a bit more active. Edit 5, sorry y'all, no more comment replies. Apparently me getting harassed here and telling said user to kill themselves is against the rules. That guy though, and the Nazi mods here, I was in foster care with relatives after my mother died, but was never an assistant per se. They kicked me out at 18, but I was eligible for a lot of benefits due to being a ward of the state my teen years. My aunt and uncle never officially adopted me. I struggled through college, but I did end up graduating and have a solid job, a home, and am getting married in less than 3 months. Edit, thank you for the gold. You made this girl tear up. Thank you so much, 3. It is really nice to know that I can inspire people. Story 2, I was in foster care, but was never adopted. I was taken away from my biological family at a young age, and from then on I only met them by appointment on a weekly basis for about an hour under supervision. I went from home to home being told directly that you're only here because you make us money, and if you were my real son, you'd be treated differently. When I would misbehave, my foster parents would threaten to call the agency and return me like some sort of defective product. During the summertime, I was sent to camps so they could get a break from me and spend alone time with their biological children. It took a mental toll on me, and I lived in constant fear. The people I was surrounded with in my foster homes made me believe that anybody that interacted with me wanted to use me, and that led me to withdraw from everybody and isolate myself to be on the safe side. I really only felt at home when I was in school. Things are better now. I'm working on my PhD and am trying my very best to build healthy relationships with people. But it is extremely hard to open up when I've been hurt so much. When I see stray cats on the street that don't trust me to feed them, I feel I have a deeper understanding of why they act the way they do. My walk of life has taught me that all things are transient, but the best feeling that I've ever felt is love. If you have any children, give them a big hug and tell them you love them. It means more than you would ever know. Story 3, both my parents committed suicide. My mother when I was 5, which put me in foster care, and my father later in life. When I was already a big part of the system, my sister and I bounced around a lot. My sister a lot more than I did. I ended up at 13 different homes. Some I would go back to, she ended up in a lot more. We were both very difficult and would test the foster families after the honeymoon period ended. And eventually it wouldn't work out and we would move on. The longest I stayed in one place was 3 years after some physical and abuse at a family and a general disregard for my future. I was caught shoplifting and given community service. Sent to a charity and became a pretty big part of their fundraising. It was a super marketable story, really. Got abused by the founder, but carried on with life, eventually got married, and had 2 kids. Didn't work out after 10 years, but I'm still doing my hobby from when I left school and work as a systems administrator. Life isn't bad. A lot of things I wish I did better. I struggle with a bit of baggage. I'm not sure how much of that is perceived and how much is real, but I'm doing much better than my sister. And I'm a relatively functional member of society, which is much better than I would have been. Edit, thanks for the gold. My first gold that I haven't purchased for myself. Story 4. I was effectively raised in a big facility For kids, they didn't have room. For kids too damaged by abuse the system to be out and about. These days, I'm mostly upset about what it did to the continuity of my education. My past ruined my future. And the only girl I've ever loved doesn't want me because I'm a mess. And it just kind of kills me every day to know I'm so disposable, an auxiliary person. I think because I've never had a stable family or been accepted anywhere, I put a lot more value in human relationships than other people. And time after time, I've learned I'm not worth it to the rest of the world. It's weird because I've always been reasonably intelligent and done well in school. So all the things most people really value have come easy to me. I'm working on grad school, get a doctorate, I play the bass guitar, I travel a bit, but all I ever wanted was to love and be loved, and it just feels impossible. All I want is something everyone else just seems to have. I still watch everyone go to their parents' houses for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I've got nowhere to go. I've graduated college with no one there to cheer me on. I'm just getting tired of exerting myself when, truthfully, no one really cares. When I was being hurt growing up, I always felt like it was something to rise against. I always knew I could forge a future for myself with education, get a good job, and love someone in a way no one's loved me. These days, though, at 30, I just feel like I missed the boat, and I'm tired of the miserable world I live in. Edit, you people are wonderful. Please blow up my inbox anytime. I'd love to hear from all of you. There's a very real possibility I will have Thanksgiving with one of you. Now it comes down to who has the best spread. Mostly joking. Maybe you've all made my night. Thank you for being wonderful. Story 5. I wasn't an orphan in the sense that my parents were dead, but neither were capable of caring for me. At age 13, I was forcibly removed from my mom's care. She lost physical and legal custody of me and my siblings, and I was placed with family. My grandparents had temporary custody of me until my mom was fit to be a parent again. Problem was she never got her act together, so I remained a ward of the state with legal guardians until I graduated high school. I wish I was put in foster care with strangers. Then, at least, the neglect, abuse, or trauma I experienced would be more understandable. The way I see it, it must be easier to treat strangers poorly than your own flesh and blood. If I was living with strangers, I wouldn't have taken it all so personally. It's been about 13 years since my family was split by the courts, and in this time, I managed to graduate from high school and college. Have a few relationships, albeit failed ones. I have a kid who is pretty awesome, and 8 years of therapy to show that I've made some positive progress emotionally. I ultimately hope to work with families who are impacted by addiction and mental health, which is what split my family, to connect them with resources and build emotional psychiatric resiliency. To cope with these problems, I believe I've stopped the cycle of abuse in my family. I want to help others stop the cycle too. Edit, I went to bed, and then right to work only to find this comment has exploded. I cannot thank you all enough for your kind words, and I understand that my experience was mild compared to many others' experiences. I don't mean to undermine the trauma others have experienced. I am working on responding individually to all of you. Thanks to the people who gilded me. 3. Story 6. I went into foster care when I was 13 and eventually aged out. I was in about 12 homes between the ages of 13 to 16. It's not easy to place a teenage girl. I'm white, and 10 out of my 12 families were black. My state, I'm not sure if this is something that is done everywhere, had an annual Foster Child of the Year award. You get nominated by social workers and foster parents. When I was 16, I was nominated and won. Got to go to a big banquet. Met Stedman Graham. Was given 1,000. Anyways, after I won that, I was placed with a very nice family who I stayed with until I was 18. Always thought they would adopt me, but they never did. I'm 28 now, and I don't talk to any of them anymore now. I own my own business. I'm getting married in 2 weeks. I made my own family out of friends who I celebrate holidays with. Sometimes I feel left out when people talking about their childhood and the things they did growing up. I've had rough patches. I get lonely. It'd be easy to get bitter. But I know how much life can truly, and I'm grateful for every day it doesn't. Story 7 and 0. This might sound weird, but for those of you desperately seeking family, try visiting or volunteering at retirement homes. Many of the people there are just as lonely. Story 8. I was never adopted, and ultimately I go through life feeling unloved no matter who is around. I believe nobody will ever love me. Emotionally, I'm all messed up, but professionally, I'm doing well, and physically, I look good so. Story 9. I was in foster care, but I was never adopted. My first foster parents never legally adopted me. But we call each other family. They never were emotional, and I constantly live in fear of being disowned if I don't finish college or maintain a Catholic lifestyle, both motivating and depressing. Story 10. TLDR went from PTSD-inducing child abuse to around 7 different unloving foster homes to being the one. Still no family, though. I trade the money for a family. This will be a long read. You don't have to read it if you don't want. It helps me just to get it all out there. Orphan might not be the most accurate term to describe me, as I think one of my biological parents is still alive, Orphan may be the best term I've got, though, since I haven't interacted with that biological parent in what'll be a decade this February. My life before foster care was not a pleasant one. I live in a run-down house with my biological mother. I never knew my biological father. This house often didn't have running water or electricity or heat. Many summers the first would come back from summer camp and find the lights out, and know that it was time to take my Game Boy to the library to charge, as not only was it a portable source of entertainment, but it doubled as a light. Some winters, I would have to sleep in a sleeping bag with 3 sweatshirts on in front of an open oven for heat. This wasn't a happy poverty either, no. My biological mother and I didn't suffer together like they do in the movies, bonding and sharing what little we had. Loving each other, no. She was vicious. She beat me daily, grabbing my hair and throwing me on the ground, sitting on top of me so I couldn't escape. She would make me stand in the corner for hours on end on glass. The house was frankly unfit to live in, with cobwebs covering the walls. My biological mother slept on a nest of unwashed clothes on the floor in her room. She didn't have a bed. She could have had a bed. There were beds in the house. She was just deeply mentally ill. The worst part, though, wasn't the physical abuse or the state of the house or the ridicule from my schoolmates from wearing the same clothes for a week because your mother didn't do the laundry. It was the mental abuse. Hearing your mother say things like, "The only way I can fall asleep at night is by thinking of ways to kill you," or "Idiot boy strikes again," when I would get dishwashing soap instead of dishwasher liquid, wreck a person's psyche, or at least it wrecked mine toward the end of it all before I got out, was falling apart at the seams. I was lashing out in class. I was slipping academically. I was going to either kill myself or I was going to kill her. I was sure of it. Luckily, I didn't take either of those paths. When I was 13, I called the cops on my biological mother, the only family I have ever interacted with in my life. This wasn't the first time I had done that, or the first time a state had been over the house. They had been getting calls from kind concerned parents for years. But every time somebody would be dispatched, my biological mother would tell me that I'd better lie, as life in foster care was worse than anything she could ever do to me. And because I was surviving, albeit barely, I didn't want to risk making things worse, so I lied. I told the social workers that the bruises I got were from playing sports, and that the house usually wasn't this bad after she'd spend hours cleaning to make it only dirty, not disgusting. This was, however, the first time I stuck to the truth and didn't recant. The next few days were a blur, but I was taken to the hospital. Then I spent the night at my preschool teacher's house and spent the next week at my homeroom teacher's house. At the time, I was attending a $20,000 a year private middle school on a full academic scholarship. Despite being in foster care and coming from the opposite of money, I considered the other kids at that school my peers, kids whose parents made millions of dollars, who were bred to go to Andover and then Harvard, who wore outfits that were more expensive than all the clothes I had ever worn up to that point. They were my peers. And I wasn't going to let a little thing like severe physical and emotional trauma and a lack of home support stop me from being like them. There's this quote, arguably attributed to Steinbeck, about socialism not working in America because the poor think of themselves not as exploited, but as temporarily disadvantaged millionaires. I lived that quote. As soon as I got out of the abusive household I was in and was placed in a more stable, but no more loving house, I rallied. Slowly, but surely, I got less weird, less antisocial. My grades improved. I got friends. I got a girlfriend. The next year, when everybody around me was applying to boarding schools, I did too. I got into one. I went to it. There was the same story as before. Famous actors' kids with 3 or 4 houses. And me, the kid with the clothes from Walmart that the state's meager clothing budget would pay for. There I was the captain of the debate team, played 2 sports, did theater, started and ran in a cappella group, and got 1 question wrong on my SAT. By any measure, I did all right. And I did it all while bouncing from foster home to foster home every few years, waking up in the middle of the night in cold sweats from flashbacks and being unable to get a high five because I'd flinch instinctively. None of the foster homes I live in ever cared for me, in either sense of the word. Some places thought I was too liberal. Some had kids of their own and treated me like a second-class kid. Some had never had any kids of any sort before and threw me back to the system when they realized it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. So I sort of drifted, doing well enough academically to set myself up for the kind of life I wanted to lead. And as of 2 weeks ago, I have it. I graduated my elite liberal arts school with a degree in computer science and am now making 6 figures at one of the biggest tech companies in the world. I got plenty of friends, plenty of close, deep, meaningful friendships, but I don't have a family. And to preempt the usual comments, please don't say they're the same. I've spent my entire life with my nose pressed up against the glass of the storefront, seeing the happy faces inside while I've been out in the cold. I know the difference between friends and family. At least I managed to make sure that I won't go hungry or have to sleep in front of an oven for heat or ever have the lights off again. I wish I had a family. Most nights I go to sleep with that thought in my mind. I'm a broken person without one. A lot of times I've thought about putting an ad on Craigslist or the local newspaper or the internet or Reddit or somewhere saying family wanted me, 23-year-old, outgoing, geeky girl. Self-sufficient in every way except the one that matters. You literally anyone willing to take me in as your child. Not as your child conditionally, not as your child until it's weird, but your child, whatever happens, however we feel about each other, just together. If you want to be the parents I never had, I'm accepting applications. Oh, and to add some more flavor to this story, I did all of this while being transgender talk about life on hard mode. Story 11, so I was never adopted, grew up in 4 different gov homes, and then was going to be kicked when I turned 18. I was in school, and the military was always showing up doing those recruiting booths. I joined the Air Force, and I've been 19 years now, found my own family, and really proved the phrase blood doesn't make family. I have been to 7 continents and over 2 dozen countries. I have to tell you, retirement is scarier than those days as a kid. Story 12, I was taken in by relatives, but never legally adopted. They raised me fine, and the only real issue is that I didn't have insurance between the ages of 18 when I was dropped from their plan for being an adult, and 24 when I had to purchase insurance for the ACA. If I was legally theirs, I could stay on their plan for another 2 years. Story 13, I'm tardy to the party. This is all me. I've told bits and pieces of my story on Reddit before, but I'm down to tell it again. I'm the child of immigrants. My mom is from Cambridge, England, and my dad from Mexico City. My mom was here on a visa, and my dad was illegal. How did such an odd couple hook up? Simple. My mom did meth, and my dad sold meth. Anyway, about the time my mom was 6-month preggers with yours truly, my dad got ripped off in a drug deal. And not 100 on the details, but from what I can gather, my dad shot up a barbecue in retaliation. He ended up killing 3 and injuring 4 or 5 others. He got multiple life sentences, and my mom got 25 for accomplice to murder. She drove the car. Due to these events, I was born while my mother was in chains. She was taken from a jail cell to the hospital to deliver me. After pushing me out, she went back to her cell, and I was off to state care. I spent the next 10 years bouncing between orphanages, group homes, and foster homes. At around 10 or 11, I was finally introduced to my biological sibling, and we were packaged off to live with our maternal grandmother. As it turned out, the grandmother was only interested in the adoption assistance checks she was receiving. She didn't give a what we did, so I hit the streets. I was doing drugs by 12, lost my virginity at 13, and spent my life as a homeless vagabond till the age of 14. At 14, I was arrested on assault charges. These charges, along with previous drug and theft charges, had me looking at serious time in TYC. Instead, the judge sent me to a youth boot camp that was sponsored by the state. I was there for about a year before being released back into a group home. Never heard from my siblings or grandma again. I managed to complete high school, and on my 18th birthday, I was released into the world with nothing but an envelope full of my identification papers. With nowhere to go and no one to turn, I took the only option I had and joined the Marines. I went 0311 and spent the next 6 years fighting 2 wars. While I was in, I saved every penny I could. I stayed deployed to pick up extra pay. I lived in the barracks, ate at the chow hall, and drove around in a beat-up old Jimmy. Once I received my DD-214, I took my pay and bought a shop and a large format printer and laminator. Over the next 2 years, busted to get my wrap shop off the ground. I literally lived in my shop. I slept in my office and showered at the gym or in this portable camping shower I bought. That was 10 years ago. Now my business has grown to 12 full-time employees and 4 part-timers. I moved from doing just wraps and graphics to also doing electrical signage, pylons, interior, and ADA signage. Oh, and all not bad for someone born in chains. Am I up because of my childhood? Oh yeah, in a weird way though, it's made me stronger. I don't fear anything anymore because if life throws me a curveball, chances are I've already had worse. I do have problems, family connections though. I've never had one, so I don't know how to interact with family members. Holidays with my wife's family is always weird to me. Now we're talking about kid, and I'm terrified I won't be able to connect with my child. It also scares me to think about how easily I can just let people go. I've been alone my whole life, so my bond with people are never strong. I'm scared of this happening with my child. I want to be an amazing dad, not a deadbeat. Story 14, I was made a ward of the state when I was 13. My dad was around, but was too busy dealing with his, and my mom left me for some dude in Canada who ended up being big trouble. I had one foster home where I was physically and emotionally abused. I figured out how to act out so badly that they didn't want me. I ended up going to a group home in Detroit. I went to school with rich kids who made fun of how I dressed and that I was poor. Because it was an affluent neighborhood, I honestly could give a less what they thought. I was pissed that my family threw me away and said I would never amount to nothing, except my grandma. My dad tried, but he had a hair-trigger temper and beat the out of me. But I was strong and fought back. He said it was PTSD, Whatever, men don't beat up women. I ended up being successful professionally. I have a college degree in computer science and had a 10-year career as a support engineer before that I served in the Marines. Had a successful enlistment. I had an issue with authority, and I question everyone. I thought executives in corporate offices were jackasses and I would never respect them. I figured out it was because I had this huge chip on my shoulder. I knew I was an outsider, and people didn't like me because I projected that. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I found out my mom was murdered by her second husband. I forgave her, I know that's shitty, but now that I'm almost 40, I felt sad that she was so disturbed. She would pick these horrible men, and she married a psychopath, and he killed her. No one deserves to go out like that. Relationship-wise, I was married once, but he wanted kids, and I didn't. I got married way too young because I thought that's what you did. I realized then I should have never married him. Nothing against him, but really we were not a good match. We fell out of love, and neither wanted to put it back together, so I've been divorced for 10 years. I have had 2 serious relationships since, and one I ended because I wasn't ready, and the other he ended it because he wasn't ready. It used to really frustrate me that by now everyone found their person, and I'm alone, but then I decided to say it and keep moving forward. Recently, I changed careers, became a special ed teacher. If I can walk a person through setting up a virtual server or upload firmware to I can teach special ed, bought a townhome. I just returned from Maui. I love to snorkel. I have a lot of pets for cats, 1 ball python and 1 horse. The horse is boarded at a training barn. He doesn't live in my town home. My HOA would have a fit. I train and ride to compete at a pro level. I'm almost done with 1 tattoo sleeve, and the other sleeve just needs a few more individual pieces, and I'll have 2 full tattoo sleeves. I'm planning more large pieces. I just made this decision that I'm not putting my life on hold anymore. Before, I was waiting for the right time, the right guy, blah, blah, blah. And then 2015 ended up the worst year of my life. While I was getting back on my feet, I just said it. I'm going to live my life for me and everyone else. If you were a shitty friend who didn't treat me right out the door, you went. I had a lot of people who would cross boundaries with me and act like to me, so those mother got let go. I just got rid of all the negativity in my life and changed my outlook. Now, I work on being positive, loving myself, loving my life, believing in magic, guardian angels, and miracles, because that does happen, and I've seen it myself. Instead of waiting for someone to love me, I decided loving myself was so much more important. Do good in the world. Be a good person, vote, swear a lot. Oh, being abandoned hurts a lot, but what I have learned over the years is this: everyone has a price to pay on a nut job planet. If you didn't pay it early on, you pay it later in life. There are things that were confessed to me that I'm not sure how that person lived through it. But then they say the same about me. You just do, something just clicks, and everything makes sense. You have to want to move forward. Yeah, I battle with my demons. I don't dress them up and serve those tea. But it's all about getting past that and not letting the bastards get you down. Proof of real me. I was in Maui last week. Story 15, another foster parent here. Even my toughest placement was so worth taking. I love doing it, even with all of its ups and downs, and it has made me passionate about foster care and children's rights. Story 16, my mom was in 42 different foster homes, orphanages, etc. Mom never got adopted for 2 reasons: they would not split her and her psychotic violent brother up, and my sociopath of a grandmother would prevent anyone from adopting mom. If mom was getting emotionally attached to a foster mother, psycho grandma would find out and have mom pulled out of the home. Mom would tell grandma about nice foster mother during planned visits. Even though mom and uncle had 2 parents, they were still in orphanages and foster homes since their narcissistic mother and father couldn't be bothered with taking care of their own kids. Mom turned out okay. Finally found stability in my dad, who loved and cared for her until the day he died. Now, I take care of her. She's had such a tough life, and her strength shows. She came out of that traumatic childhood sane and able to raise a family. Story 17, not a foster child, but my friend was, and in middle school, I'll never forget, people were picking on her, and she said to me, "It's okay that they make fun, etc., because my parents picked me out of all the other kids. They could have chosen another child, but they picked me, and I'm here at this school." We were at a private school that I took for granted looking back. That just kind of always stuck with me. There's something special I think about being adopted for long term. Story 18, not me. But my father's mother left him at Christmas time when he was 8. She said she needed black-eyed peas and never came back. To this day, he gets sick looking at them. He grew up in an orphanage with his 4 brothers, moved to Nashville at 16, and went to a newly desegregated school in a horrible area of town. He was one of the first white kids in a high school. He graduated, went to community college, and started a tree nursery farm. He was a racist alcoholic and was abusive in every way to the family. Then he had a wreck that the doctors say he shouldn't have recovered from. He's nicer sometimes and doesn't drink. He said he felt flames licking at his feet while unconscious. Now he has almost 0 short-term memory, sort of like Memento, but not as extreme. He writes everything down in a notebook every day. His kidneys are failing now, and he's not looking good. He's unmarried and bitter. I don't really like him or love him. I understand where he came from, but I can't just unfeel those early years and forget what I saw and felt. I think the only thing I feel for him is pity. I feel like crying just saying that, but I really do only feel sorry for him. I don't hate or dislike him. I just don't care either way. It's pity. It's pity that gets him a call at holidays and pity that makes me answer the phone. He has no one else on this earth except me. And he only has me because I pity him. Story 19, I was out in the system at 10 years old when my dad killed my mom, and then himself in front of me. I suffered emotional, physical, and abuse from many different foster families, and no one ever believed me. At 18, I was free and decided to help others like me. I am now a social worker for abused children and thank the Lord for every day that I am breathing. Story 20, I'm surviving. Not technically an orphan, but grew up in foster care. I have no family, but my baby sister, who is now an adult and is surviving as well. I've always been like her mom, so we do holidays and things together with the SOs we have at the time. Life is hard, especially when you have no one to turn to for help. Friends make it better, but I don't have any super close ones except one. My mom is still around, but not really as a mom in the sense of wanting to take care of us. Things could be worse. And as I type this, I look around at all of my fur babies and see all the things I own, and I feel grateful for what I have. If I know anything, it's that my life won't always be this way, and things always get better. Story 21, I adopted 2 from Ukraine, 12 and 14 at the time. Went back when they were older, and some of the kids they were in class with 7 years earlier were street kids, 95 degrees with long shirts to hide the track marks while begging, living on or below the streets. My 2 understand what they left, and they no longer see Ukraine through rose-colored lenses. They miss Ukraine, and we encourage them to go back on vacation, but they understand they're not going to be able to save their friends from orphanage for in Odessa. Story 22, ITT, a lot of really great stories that are told from the heart. A lot of people requesting OP at a serious tag, and very few obscene comments. Can we please keep it that way regardless of serious tag? Story 23, I was going to make a detailed OP forgot his serious tag story, but I found it to be in bad taste to do so. I don't want to take away from the legitimate stories here. However, OP, you need to get on that serious tag bandwagon. Story 24, I'm not an orphan, but had to be put in care due to abuse and other things. Reading all your stories makes me feel like you're my family. We guys get each other, know what we went through, and how up emotionally we are now. Love you all. Story 25, wow. Being adopted by a loving and caring family and reading most of your posts, I've realized that I might have taken all of this for granted and going to call my mom and dad to tell them I love them tomorrow morning. Story 26, I was adopted from orphanage in Haiti. Some of my friends that didn't get adopted have been sponsored by a wealthy family in Canada. They said by 14, 16, they were pushed out of the orphanage compound and into the real world. Some continued with education, but most try to find their way in a country with little to no opportunity. Some have moved to Dominican Republic for more opportunity. The ones that have been sponsored us spend the first 5 years learning the language and getting a job. Story 27, I'm a white American male who has 2 living divorced parents who raised me in an upscale suburb. I'm lucky, and yet I still have days where I feel like I'm up, but I'm grateful for posts like this that help keep me in check. Okay, so my parents both relented their rights, so I was a ward of the state. But I was kicked out of foster care at 20 because I got my own place, and they saw that as being defiant. So I'm currently going to school for meteorology. I have a full-time job, I have my own car, I do suffer from depression, but I have ambitions, and I refuse to be like my parents. I think I'm going great. As far as never being adopted, well, that was my fault. I was a very badly behaved foster kid, and I upped every chance I had for a family. I regret it now, but I don't let it hold me back.